Welcome to the Clicks and Giggles podcast. Today I have a friend and colleague, Vicki Abelson, here today. Welcome, Vicki.
Thank you, Jordan. I am so excited to be here today.
Yay! Oh my gosh, I'm excited to just chat all things being a great leader, business owner, just human worker, etc. And so I'm glad to have you here. So Vicki and I met a couple years ago through Guide Culture sales training. So awesome. And so then I went through her goals training, which I cannot speak highly enough about. So the next time you do it, I'm there. Brad went through it with me this year. And so I would love for you to tell the people listening just a little bit about yourself. I know I couldn't do your story justice and I don't know your full story, so I'm excited for us to chat through that today. So can you just tell them a little bit about you?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. And actually, it's so funny. I recently remembered exactly how we met. And I remember thinking when I met you, like you were going to be an R and we're going to be a powerhouse. And it's amazing to see that
you are so
together.
Sweet.
It's just so, I don't know, it just makes my heart so happy.
We met at an Academy Monday, right?
Yes,
was that
we
one
did.
of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I love that.
It's so funny. Okay. So a little bit about me. So, first of all, I'm a mom and a business owner. I have two small, young children, not so small anymore, two young children. And I am an executive coach, an executive life coach. My practice is called the Defined Leader. Before that, though, I have about 20 years, nearly 20 years of sort of corporate life experience working in healthcare administration. I did all things except for touching the patient, nothing clinical, but like finance, project management, human resources, revenue cycle operations. I did it all for about 20 years. I have an MBA, I have a master's degree in communications, and I pivoted my career in about 2019 into coaching, and I haven't looked back.
It's so neat. No, I love that too because we have that healthcare background. I worked with Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital in St. Pete, Florida, but I came in and worked for the foundation in fundraising, digital fundraising.
Love that.
Yeah, and then I went to social media, and then I did the social and ads for the whole hospital. So I just love the healthcare world. My husband's a pharmacist, so and I'm like, I don't think I can do this every day. So I respect
I get that.
And there's so much red tape too with it. Like every post we were putting out, we were getting comments from legal, and like I understand that too, but I'm like, okay, I need a career with a little less red tape and more freedom,
Yeah, I get it. Well, you were working for a large academic medical center, and I also worked for a large academic medical center, and that just comes with a certain level of, bureaucracy, right or wrong. That just comes with a certain level of bureaucracy. They have to learn how to manage.
Yeah,
and want to manage.
Right, exactly. So I'm like, I'm good, and I know that you journeyed through, and I mean, I was not there as many years as you were. So how did you come to that decision where you're like, wait, I've been doing this almost 20 years, and now I want to transition into more of the coaching world? How did that come to be?
That's a good question. So I kind of have these two pivotal moments. One of them was coming back from maternity leave the second time. And after I had my youngest son, and I remember thinking at the time, like, oh my gosh, first of all, I love healthcare. I still to this day, love healthcare. And I can quickly tell you faster than probably anybody how the people on the back end, like the revenue cycle people, the project managers, how the impact that they have on the patient experience, on patient outcomes, on quality, on all of that. And I really passionately believe in that. At the same time, as I grew in my career, and I literally when I started working in healthcare, I worked in a medical records room, carrying paper charts for to the physicians post-op. And then I was a director of finance when I left. So I literally grew up in healthcare, but I got away. I was too far away, I think, from being close to where that impact was. And I realized what I loved and where I was the most impactful was in helping people be their best and helping people be great. And when I came back from maternity leave the second time, I was promoted, and my team was actually also promoted because of how we all managed through my extended maternity leave and the impact that we made during my extended maternity leave. And I realized oh, I want to do more of that, right? I want to be able to help more people sit on the right seat, on the right bus that's headed on the right direction. And that was sort of pivotal moment number one. And pivotal moment number two happened maybe a year or two after that. I was sitting in a room with one of my managers, a woman that worked for me. She was so smart. She was so, so smart. And I asked her, like, just kind of out of curiosity, like, where do you see your career going? And she said, well, this is it. This is where I see it going.
Wow.
And she sort of said this in this like very resigned sort of way. And I was flabbergasted because she was in her early 40s, so smart, like had such a great reputation, but she didn't see her career going anywhere. And I asked her why. And she said, because her previous manager had told her that she was never going to be able to be promoted. And I like my jaw just completely hit the ground. And I was like, wait, what? I was just completely like, just did not make any sense. And so
it makes me sad.
It made me so sad.
It makes me tear up. Yeah.
It made me so sad. And she like internalized that belief to think that like somebody told her she couldn't. And so she believed them. And, and so she didn't. And what that manifested for her as not speaking up in meetings, not putting herself up for promotional opportunities, doing sort of like the bare minimum to be good, but nothing to be great because somebody told her that she like, what was the point? And so over the next year or so, I worked with her to, first of all, take that belief away, right? To create some new beliefs around her ability to be promoted. And she eventually was not only promoted to a senior manager and then to an assistant director, but then she was actually, when I left the organization, when I went to go start the Define Leader full time, she was actually promoted into my role.
I love that.
Which is amazing and has since grown even beyond that in the 4 years since I've left, which is just makes me incredibly happy and proud of her and just celebrate like every day.
Yes, that's a freaking wild win. And like, it's so crazy how the words of a leader, the impact they have, for better or for worse,
for better or for worse. Yeah. And how we internalize them and like how we, like the things that people say. And, I wasn't there in that conversation. He might have said it and he meant it, or he might have said it as like a throwaway comment, but like 9 times out of 10, the things that people say actually have nothing to do with you and has everything to do with them. But she believed it. And I, he was a person of power. So of course she believed him.
Yes, exactly. Well, I had a boss. Oh my gosh. I was like 21 or 22 and I moved to Orlando for this job. Oh my, this is like so wild. I lived in St. Pete, went through a really bad breakup, and like I actually found out the guy I was in love with was addicted to painkillers. It was horrible. Gosh. And so I was like, I got to get out of town. Like I've got to like move and figure this out, Like I was like, this isn't working, and like I need, like I know everyone in my hometown, so I moved to Orlando. But what happened was I actually worked for his competitor, and I was like downloading a freebie. This is so wild. I downloaded a freebie to look at their pricing and see if the competitor I was working with, what it looked like. It ended up being this whole thing where he's like, oh, you must be good at what you do, pitched me for a job. I ended up moving there. The client I was working with understood because he knew what was going on in my life. He's like, you're 21, 22. Like, go. If you're being relocated, like, try this. Well, when I got there, it was a totally different situation, right? And like kind of always like under his thumb. And he said to me once, he said, you're really good at what you do, but the problem is you talk too much. You need to just stop talking. And I, in hindsight, can know that like what he was saying was I needed to be a better listener. But it like shut me up and shut me down for years to where I feel like now at 33, I finally found my voice more, and in a way that can have good conversations and bring things to the table, but not talk all the time. But it was that exact situation where I'm like, I probably until like a year or two ago really thought like, what did he actually mean? And I gave it meaning I wanted to. I was like
100%. Oh like, my gosh.
He doesn't, but it's like those moments where it's like, I could have just resigned myself to be like, I'm good at what I do, but I talk too much. Okay, like
so
I'm
quiet.
Done. Yeah, so I'll be quiet. And now I'm like, no. And so it also makes me think when I'm giving feedback or talking to people, like they could take this with them for a long time. So how do I want to lead? So I love that you were able to see that in her, and to even pause to ask the question. I feel like business owners or, you know, managers, directors, etc. in the corporate world, we're all moving fast, and sometimes we
Yes.
don't even take the time to have those conversations. So
Yeah.
kudos to you for being like, hey, where do you want to go, right? So okay, so after that, were you like, okay, I need to do this on a bigger scale with more people, like, than just the team you were on? Like, from that conversation, how long after did you start your business?
Yeah, so that conversation was in like 2018, 2019. And I
Okay.
worked for a large organization here in Atlanta. And I thought that I was going to be able to coach within the organization. Like I was just like, like, because I didn't want to leave. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not an entrepreneur. Like I like working in healthcare. I want to stay there. So that was my goal. I did go and get a coaching certification because that was
Cool.
important to me. In 2019, I worked through like a year-long program and got certified
Wow.
as a professional coach, which was an incredible experience for me. I learned a lot, was humbled a lot. I learned a lot about myself, about coaching, all of the things. And through that process, I decided that I really wanted to try and start my own business. And so,
Nice.
in March of 2020, before
Wow.
the pandemic officially like kicked off, I quit my job.
Wow.
And like literally on March 1st, 2020, I came to my boss and said, hey, like this, I'm leaving. And he was very supportive and very, all of the wonderful things. I ended up staying longer just because then the pandemic did hit and sort of
Yeah.
I ended up staying to help my team through the transition to working from home and telehealth and all of that. So I ended up
Ooh.
staying an extra year. Um,
Wow.
but at that time I had already launched the Define Leader, and I was doing both at the same time. I
Okay.
was full-time working in my, still my healthcare job, and I was starting to um, coach full-time as well.
Wow.
While parenting small children during a pandemic,
Yes, during a pandemic, right?
it was a lot of fun. I highly, highly, highly
Yeah,
recommend
I'm
it.
like, oh my gosh.
It was
Okay.
a crazy year, but basically a year later in March of 2021, I fully left, and I haven't looked back, and I've been doing this full time since then.
Wow. No, it's so neat.
Yeah.
I remember you were on stage at Guide Culture Academy one Monday and you asked some really, really good questions. And I remember Macy, I think, had just gotten life coach certified or was in the midst of it. And she
Mm-hmm.
was like, I can tell you're a great coach based on the questions you asked. And I was like, I thought that was an incredible compliment. And B, I was like, no, I could tell too. And so has that been, because like coaching isn't new. That's what I always like remind people. It's not new. I've had, you know, bosses in the past who had executive coaches. That's what John Maxwell has built his career
A
and
whole career
empire on,
on.
right?
Yeah,
And other
100%.
people.
And other people, yeah.
Yeah. And so what do you find like makes a good coach? Like obviously like the question asking skills, or like is there anything that you like say if people are looking for a coach to look for in a good coach? I'm just curious based on
No,
this
that's
conversation.
that's a great question. So I think a couple of things. One is curiosity, right? So like
Mm,
So I think that what allows me to ask good questions is my curiosity about
ooh,
people. Um, that's one thing. The other thing too is I think just an ability to see things really, really clearly. I think one of
mm,
my superpowers, I think, as a coach, is to be able to have a conversation with somebody and see the words that they're not saying, like seeing the words behind the words, so that I can
ooh.
ask them about those words.
Like kind of like
And those,
decoding and deciphering.
yeah, like
Mm,
when you say A, I think you're saying B, but
yeah.
help me understand, like, that disconnect, because sometimes, there's the word that we say, and then there's the face that we make, and then there's the
Mm,
body language that we have, and then there's sometimes that, like, I call it level 3 listening. Like level 1 listening is when you just hear the words that are being said. Level 2
ooh,
listening is when you hear the words and you connect the dots between their body language and their voice and all that. Level 3 listening is when you're listening with your core and with your gut, and when you're like,
mm,
I hear you say this, but like, do you really mean that? And
wow.
being able to listen with like level 3 listening, I think, is one of the things that makes a really, really good coach. And also I would add too, is like being able to really balance support and like an acknowledging of your experience while also at the same time pushing you and encouraging you to go further than you really thought was maybe possible for you.
Shoot, that's good. I've never heard of the different 3 levels. Now I'm like, ooh, this
like,
is,
how am I
but
listening?
yeah, right? Shoot. Okay, that's convicting. But I love that too. If someone is looking for a coach, and obviously I want them to look at you and reach out to you and know, know maybe if it's in a different industry or they're looking for something specific, like can the coach they're bringing, because I think you've seen this too, there's seasons for different coaches. Like
100%.
Right now I'm working with Alexis Greco on some of the home and business rhythms, tying them in on running a better home, which has been so lovely. And then I have an agency coach, right? So she is helping me scale and grow this agency. She has 3 little ones. Like she's $1 million agency. I'm like, okay, as I'm heading there, you're who I need in this season. But it's also like things change, right? To where we were on calls every week, and now I'm like, hey, can I pay you just for Slack support? Because I'm good for a minute, but I need to like take what I've learned and run. But then there's other things that come up, and I'm like, okay, wait, can I break through this, or do I need to bring someone in? And so I think that also like the thought of, once I find a coach I love, they're still in my life some way or another. You know what I mean?
100%.
But
100%.
But it's like figuring out in that season, what do you need? And can they push you in the way that you need? Because
100%.
I mean, it's funny, Brad's here today. He's off today, but he would laugh and be like, yes, but I hate accountability. I hate it like so much. And so I do everything I can to fight it. And so when there is a coach, which it's so funny because I was talking to Alexis and I'm like, I have to go get my blood work done by this date. And she was like, go enjoy your blood work. And I'm like, man, she's good. I'm like, this is something I've been putting off. And I know I just need to do a quarterly check-in. Do it. But like, I will always put off personal things because I'm like, well, I could get on this call or listen to this training. And so it's the one that will push enough, because you don't want, like, if you're paying for this, you don't want to be complacent and be like, well, I didn't really grow. Right. And so I think that really is, and there is the delicate balance too of like, how hard are you, like, for you as a coach, right, to have the emotional intelligence to be like, okay, wait, maybe they're in a season where they don't need this, or maybe they need therapy, or
like maybe they need therapy. 100%. Yeah.
Which that's a whole other, there was definitely a season last year where I had a coach who I love, but I was like, I need to go back to therapy. And like, I need, like 100%. There was a certain point where I'm like, oh wait, this is more than just like
this is deeper
chit-chatting. Yeah, this is deeper. And so I did.
This is deeper.
But I definitely think that push is so needed, where like, yeah, if you're hiring someone, heck yeah, let's see what we can do. And so what are some things within your business that you coach people on? Like, if people are listening, they're like, oh, executive coaching, what exactly does that mean? What are some different topics that you do coach on?
Yeah, so I'm gonna answer your question by going back to like 2 things that you just said that I think are so important, and I just want to highlight. One is,
that's why you're a freaking good coach, because you're a good listener.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm all ears.
So one thing that you said, you didn't say it, but like, you use a coach, whether it is in your personal life or in your work life, but you use it sort of proactively, just as if like you have a healthcare background, just as if going to a primary care physician. You're not going to a coach when like the house is burning down, when like everything is terrible, when you're going to a coach proactively so that things can continue to be steady and or grow. And then your coach will meet you where you are, right? Whether it's having calls with you every week or whether it's just Slack support, I do Boxer support, like they meet you where you are, because the goal is to continue either being steady or rising, but not like, what I don't want is for clients to call me, and it happens, of course, but like, oh my gosh, I have an emergency.
I'm in the ashes and I need you. Yeah, it's like,
exactly. Like, great, I can help you, sure, but like, call me a month ago, 2 months ago,
100,
so that you don't get to this point.
100%. And like that is such a good point of like there's work that can be done as like a band-aid, but like
Yes.
it's in the months prior where you're like something doesn't feel
Something
right,
feels
or like someone else sees something. Like the way Alexis and I came to work together is on her retreats, she coaches on business and life, right?
Mhm.
Business, I'm in the room like giving advice,
Right.
helping people, right?
Right.
And she's like, it was a round table and she's like, you're fine on business, I'm not worried
Yeah.
about you there.
Yeah.
She's like, but you're home. She's like,
Mhm.
who's gonna take the rotisserie chicken off the bone for your salad
So you
while
can
you're
eat
on
it. Yeah.
calls all day?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'd buy this rotisserie chicken and toss it because I wasn't ready,
Right.
like, or she
Yeah.
was like, who's gonna do your laundry that's piling up? And so
Yeah.
it's just funny because like y'all can see this, like I can see the blind spots in someone's business,
But
but
not
y'all
in your
can
personal
see it.
life.
Yes. And
Mhm.
so that was when it was like, hey, this is not burning down. But she was like, here's some things, right?
Yeah. They keep it from burning down.
Right, where like you can see things and be like, hey, you've been saying this. Like you can see trends and
Right.
patterns and be
Right.
like, hold up. Just like I can be with, I mean, I asked a client the other day, I said, do you even like your offer?
Yeah.
And they were like, interesting, because I'm like, you're just not excited to sell it if you love what you do. And so then they're like, I love what I do, I don't know how I feel about this offer. I'm like, let's look
Great.
at it.
Let's look
Because
at it.
yeah, but I love that like we get so far in our own weeds of our life and business
Oh my gosh, yes.
that like we can't see it. And so having a coach to be able to see that and help
Yes.
take you to the next level, I love it. And I love that description of like helping you like be steady or rise versus like pulling you out of the
ashes. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing you said is like so important, and you just sort of like alluded to it again, is you actually said the word complacent, and I just want to highlight that word because complacency is like, I call it, I actually like tonight, this is going to be past when this podcast airs, but tonight I'm hosting a workshop called Unlock the Golden Handcuffs of Complacency. Because complacency is like, I don't even have a great word for it, but it's just like, it is so easy to get stuck in complacency. Complacency is like, it's like cozy, it's comfortable, like everything is going fine, like it's okay. Like if you have to throw out another rotisserie chicken, you throw out another, like it's not the end of the world, right? And if you like, you skip your blood work, you'll get it another month. Like it's fine. Like I don't like my offer. It's okay. Like
it is what it is.
It's fine.
Right?
It is what it is. Oh my, yes, it is what it is. Is my like, that's like my trigger word.
Yes, which freaks me out. Oh my gosh, I'm laughing if you're watching the live stream. It's great.
I don't know what just happened. But like, complacency. It just like, it holds us stuck, and we deserve so much more than being complacent. Like we have worked too hard to be like, you're 33, I'm in my early 40s. Like we have worked way too much and way too hard to be complacent, and we can have so much more impact on our personal lives, on the lives of our families, on the lives of our children, on the lives of like our employees, our coworkers, than being complacent. And like what I coach people on really is how to not be complacent, how to have better boundaries, how to have better communication, how to have better thoughts, so that you can continue growing, but in a way that like meets your needs, right? In a way that meets your personal and professional goals.
I love that. No, okay, well, I want to tune into this training tonight, so please send me the link after. We have we have dinner tonight, but I'm like, I will catch a replay or watch later.
I'll send it to you.
And if it ends up being great, which I'm sure it is, and you do some sort of replay or some sort of way people listening now can get in on it, feel free. We'll put it in the show notes too, because I feel like people listening, that's such a great first way to start. The whole thing with coaching, and I think with therapy too, is like just freaking awareness. Because when you aren't aware, emotional intelligence is like, I am not book smart. Brad and I will like laugh, because he was like, we go back and forth on homeschooling kids. One day, I cannot even imagine I want to pay a tutor. Like I will work harder to pay a tutor to come over. And Brad's like, you're freaking clever and you're life smart. And like, he's like, that's how you do this and you survive. You know, like, I cannot tell you some presidents' names or like, you know, countries, capitals, all this crazy town, but I can read a room and I can read a person. And so I'm like, I'm good. I'm fine with that because that's my superpower, right?
Yeah, it's your superpower.
And so, and it scares me when I wasn't as self-aware. And I do say this to Brad sometimes, like once a month, I'm like, if I'm delusionally thinking I'm self-aware, can you please bring me back to earth? Because I don't want to go through life thinking, you know, and he's like, no, you're good. Like, yes. But then for people listening to this who are like, wait a minute, I've never even thought through complacency. I've never even thought through this, because coaching, while it's been around, it's still new to people, you know?
100%.
So what is that first step if you're listening and you're like, hold up, maybe it doesn't have to be this way.
It doesn't have
or I can, you know, I can advance in my career. What they said wasn't true. Now I may have some work to do to make it happen, right? What is that kind of next step?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So I would say, first of all, you are a person that I think is very, very self-aware, right? I've seen you over the years and I've had conversations with you over the years, and you are very self-aware. At the same time, I see a lot of people that say they're self-aware because of their age, because of their seniority, because of their title, because of, you know, 1,000 different factors. They say they're self-aware. And like, but really what's happening is they have spinach in their teeth and they have no idea.
Oh, it's so scary. Isn't
so
it like
scary.
a scary? That's why I asked Brad, I'm like, please check me. Please check me. He's like, no, you're good. You're good.
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine if you, that's a whole other thing. Okay, so if you're listening to this and you maybe are like, oh my gosh, wait, I need help with this. Or if you're on the other side and you're like, wait, I may need a gut check. Maybe I've been thinking I'm right. So what do you do in either of those? Like, just find someone, a coach, like you're talking about, to do a session to just figure out where you're at and then kind of diagnose and go from there? Or what? Diagnose, quotes, if you're listening, right?
Diagnose,
quotes, you know what I mean? Where you can be like, hey, like, how do you even do that as a coach? Sorry, I'm throwing like 500 questions at you. But when you do meet someone who you're like, skirt, what do you do? I've fired off like 4,000 questions, but I feel like this is good dialogue. You know, what do you think about all this?
Yeah, I think that's a good. So first of all, so one thing that I think, and I'm just going to use you as an example because, you know, we're having a conversation. Like if you had told me that you were not working with any coaches right now, but like we're just asking Brad for that gut check, I would tell you to 100% go work with a coach, because our significant others, they love us and they support us unconditionally. And like my husband, who I love very much and who's my biggest cheerleader, like he can't really tell me like what I'm getting right and what I'm getting wrong. He could, but like I'm not going to hear it, because I'm going to be like, I'll get defensive.
Right? 100%. Honestly, had the answer not been the right answer, I would have been pissed. So yes, you're right.
100%. But if somebody who is objective, who is not invested in any specific outcome, if they told me the same thing, I would be like, oh, okay, like let me think about that, right? We all need somebody who is objective, who is not who's not our best friend, who is not our boss, who's not our coworker. If you're working for yourself, especially, like, you know, who can objectively tell you, like, do you have spinach in your teeth? Or
right. How can we? Yes. It's funny. Olivia Miller is that for me a lot of times, because I like know she'll say it even if it might, and I'll just be like, is this bad? Is this right? And she'll be like, yeah, no. Or like something I can't do in the future that I'm bummed, but just schedule's not aligning. She's like, you actually don't have to say why. Like, she can just tell me, you know, you can just, right?
Exactly.
But if you don't have that, and it doesn't go beyond that, we have a good conversation and move along. But if I need coaching, I'll talk to my coach about it, right?
Exactly.
Well, what about all these people? Like, you can't just rely 100%. That's a good point. Brad is honest to a fault. I mean, he does want what's best for me, and so he can say it sometimes, but 100% the conversation ends there, right? So had he been like, you're a little delusional in this category, if I didn't have someone to talk to, I would be like, oh shoot, you know? And
Yeah.
so I think that is right where you're saying, like, if you don't have a support system of an outside third party,
Yeah.
you need, I mean, I believe everyone needs a coach if
Yes.
they're trying to go somewhere.
If you're trying
You
to go
know?
somewhere. And yes, if you're trying to go somewhere, I
Yeah,
agree.
to
You
not
need
go
you,
backwards. Yeah.
or just to not be like, or just to not be even stuck, right? So like, I really would like,
Yeah.
you know, your listeners, like if they're thinking about working with a coach, I would really encourage you to like go out and have a conversation with one, right? Like,
Yeah.
and just to be able to like kind of understand what are your goals. If you don't know what your goals are, that's okay. Like I think a lot of people I work with don't really know what their goals are. They're like, yeah, like, you know, they say things to me like, I just want to be happy. Okay, great. Like I also want to be happy. Let's figure
Yeah.
out, what does being happy mean to you,
Yeah.
so that we can actually help make a plan to help you get there, because happiness
Yeah.
to me is going to look different than what happiness to you is going to
And what
look
are
like, right?
right, and what are the benchmarks? Because it's not
What are
just
the
like
benchmarks?
happy is 100 and not happy is 0. Like what
Right.
happens between then, you know?
Exactly.
Because
Exactly.
you can have a lot of crappy circumstances going on and still be happy, right? So is it
Yeah.
circumstantial? Is it okay, I like that too. And I think too, if people are listening and they're like, I've never had a coach and want to have that conversation, you're great and you're willing to get on calls and talk to people, which is what I love about people who know how to sell and how to coach, is you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, let's talk about this and
Let's
see
talk
if
about
it's a
it.
good
Yeah.
fit. Because also, it doesn't benefit you to bring on a coaching client that's not aligned with you, because
No.
that sounds terrible.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I have worked with clients, I'm sorry, who have not been the right, like I have not been the right coach for them, or they were
Yeah.
not ready. They were not ready for coaches. And I have worked with like, because since my initial like working with a coach in 2018, I have worked with a coach basically consistently since that time for 6 years.
Wow.
And some of those coaches have been amazing and fantastic. And some of them have been like, maybe not such great fits for
Yeah.
me. And so I've had to like say the hard thing and say, I'm sorry, you know, thank you, but no thank you, or I have to move on.
Right.
Because they were
Right.
great, but maybe they weren't the right coach for me in that season. And it
Yeah.
is important to find somebody who you align with, who is going to push you, who's going to support you, who you are going to feel
Yeah.
like really psychologically safe with. You know, and I'm
Yes.
not a therapist. Like I will say that a million times over. I am not a therapist. Some of my clients see a therapist at the same time as
Yeah.
seeing me. But it is so important that you feel psychologically safe with me to be able to say the
Yeah.
things that you need to say, to think the things that you need to think, so that you can change your actions.
Yeah. I love that. It's true. I see my therapist for tune-ups, as I call them,
Right.
amidst this, because
Yes.
there's so much of like the past, and I used to get too stuck on why do I do the things I do, and
Yes.
it's like it actually doesn't matter. Just
It
you
doesn't
need to
matter.
stop doing them. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Most
And
of the time it
so
doesn't matter. Yeah.
yeah, and so I'll call her in every once in a while, and she actually coaches as well. So
Yeah.
if it's people out of state, so it's been interesting working with her.
Yeah.
So but it absolutely 100% where I'm like, okay, I feel super safe with my coach, and this person has all this history on me. Let me go to her, and then I show back up for coaching sessions, tweaking a few little things, and we're
Exactly.
like, let's go,
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because the hot take, you can read all the personal development you want,
Oh my gosh.
but if you're not taking action on it and you don't have someone helping you and holding you accountable, like, freaking burn the books.
Oh my
You
gosh.
know?
100%. 100%. Like I literally just wrote something about this morning, in that like, yeah, like you can go and like read a book about time management, about boundaries, about accountability, about all of the things.
Yes.
I will give you that whole list, like by all means. And at the same time, if your thoughts aren't in the right place to be able to implement those things, and if your beliefs aren't in the right place to be able to like take in that knowledge, you have just wasted $20 on a book.
Yes.
And the odds are you probably haven't read those books anyway. Like you probably bought them and they're sitting on your nightstand table. And I say that because like I'm just as guilty of that as the next person.
I have
Like I
books
have
behind
so
me.
many.
Yes. Yeah.
And like the ones that I have read, like too, but like if my mind isn't right, if your mind isn't right, if your thoughts aren't aligned, then nothing is going to change.
And the magic's in the work, right?
And
Which is
magic is
what
in the work.
a lot of people don't want to do, and it pays
Yeah.
off so much. But I've given myself so much freedom lately with the books I buy, because I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I'll get this, I get this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think Macy said it before, like, take the meat, leave the bones.
Leave the
And like
bone.
I've heard
Yeah.
other people say that too,
Yeah.
where I'm like, I will skim through a book just to get a couple good quotes I can take pictures of, look back later,
Yeah.
learn a little, and
Yeah.
move along, because I'm like, this book is not going to change my life. What
Yeah.
I do from
What
reading
you
it
do with
can.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
coming to a coach and being like, hey, I was reading this book on time management and I am not good at time,
Right.
whatever it is.
Exactly.
But
Whatever it is. Yeah.
who can help you with the game plan to move forward? And otherwise, like, these books are for nothing,
These books
and
are for
so
nothing. Yeah.
I think personal development gets out of control. What were you gonna say?
I was just say, and also, like, who can help you figure out what's the meat and what's the bones, right? Because you and I can be the same book, and like
Yes.
the different things are going to be meat for us.
Yeah.
Like, but we can figure
Gosh.
out like what is relevant to you in this season of life.
Yeah, 100%. I'm
Yeah.
getting like my hiney kicked right now by Grant Cardone. I'm in his mastermind, which,
Oh, I
speaking of
love that.
masterminds, we'll talk
Yeah.
about your exciting one in
Yeah.
a second. And I needed like some masculine energy. I like, also, it's like on my vision board to one day work with him.
I
We
love
have
that.
mutual connection, so I'm like, it's going to happen.
It's gonna happen. It's
And
gonna
so
happen.
I'm like, let me get in this room. Let me make sure what he teaches is what I want. And so I was on this mastermind call. And yesterday, the it's one of the like president or head of sales of his company was like, if you are not selling while your clients are, or prospective clients are, awake and on their phones or can get on Zoom, you're missing out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that was the meat, right? Where I'm like, I am like in the weeds. I'm like getting in the weeds so bad in my business with my team, and they're probably so annoyed. But it's like, okay, I love that, like, I had this idea for this data tracker that we're going to use, but like, you need to look at that at like 7 p.m.
7 p.m.
And so
on the weekends.
it was just, it's so interesting. But like, you take the meat, that was the meat I took, right? And I'm convicted. I'm texting Brad. I'm like, I've got to get back on my follow-ups, like better at it, not leaving people in my DMs. That is hard for me. And saying it is not enough. Hearing it is not enough. It's like, who on my team or going to my coach, and saying like, hey, I need to do follow-ups for an hour a day.
Yeah.
Can you hold me accountable?
And also like the data and the dashboards, all of that is also incredibly important to your business too, right? So who on your team can do that so that you can focus on the work that you're great at, and the work that like gives you energy, and where you are like in healthcare, we talk about operating at your highest level of licensure so that Jordan can operate at her highest level of licensure, which is selling, which is understanding ads, which is strategy. And like, I'm assuming there's somebody on your team whose highest level of licensure is data analytics and like all of the things.
Oh yes. And it has been delegated, right? Where I'm like, hey, I want to see the low-hanging fruit of who didn't convert. Let's talk to them, see if my program's a good fit. But like, I don't need to pull those numbers. Can you please gather them? You love spreadsheets, right?
Exactly.
This will take me 500 hours. And so yes, 100%, like the zone of genius and being empowered to stay in it. I like that. Your way of saying it. Okay, so speaking of masterminds, if people are like, hey, I'm not necessarily in a position where one-on-one coaching, which it's so funny because the busy business owner sometimes can't break away for those calls, or C-suite manager director, right? Which actually probably, using guide culture verbiage, is the very reason why they should. And can you talk more about your mastermind? Because this episode is coming out in May, and so that is when your mastermind is launching. So I'd love to hear more about it.
Yeah. So, okay. So can I tell you like how this idea came about? Like the mastermind?
Please.
So I work with mostly women executives, business owners. And for years they have been telling me like, Vicki, you need to start a networking group. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, that's a great idea. Like, we need women connecting with other women so that we can inspire each other and like, do all of the things and connect each other with other opportunities, all of the things. And I wasn't doing it. And I kept asking myself, like, why am I not doing this? People keep asking me for it. I think it's a great idea. Why am I not doing this? And a question that I like to ask myself is, if I'm delaying something, or ask my clients too, if I'm delaying doing something, why is that? Like, what is that telling me? And what that told me, I realized I wasn't doing it because I I actually don't like networking groups. And I find, because I'm an introvert by nature,
Yeah.
and they actually take a lot out of me. And so if I don't like participating in networking groups, what makes me think that I'm going to enjoy leading one? What I
Wow.
do like, and where I can be of service, is coaching, right? Coaching, training, facilitating, and still bringing people together. And so
Love that.
I sort of officially launched a mastermind back in December, January, with some of my current and former clients. And we meet every other week, and it's a combination of teaching and coaching, where I'm coaching them and where they are coaching each other. Because it's one thing to hear
Wow.
from me, but it's also something else to hear and learn from other people in similar experiences. And they are women, like nonprofit leaders, investment leaders, having people that have their own businesses. It's kind of a combination of, and the power of that is you learn, you get supported, and you implement, because we meet every other week, and we meet, on Zoom, and we have access to each other via Voxer. So like, you kind of have a coach in your back pocket always to
Mm.
keep you moving forward, no matter what's happening. And they can ask me questions, they can ask each other questions, they can share wins, they can share work throughs.
Wow.
And it allows you to really, really grow, and really, really be supported. And also, honestly, like, it's just really, really fun. Like,
Yeah.
how great is it? Like, every 2 weeks you get to meet and like have lunch,
Yes.
with your closest friends that you've never met in person.
Yeah. And business is lonely.
business
Business is
Business is lonely, and like being a
corporate.
senior
I mean,
leader is lonely. You don't have like
yeah. Yeah.
coworkers that you can go to the cafeteria with and have lunch with.
Right.
Yeah,
100%. And so,
yeah.
and I love that too. Like, do you think someone also who might be a good fit is someone who is like in a manager or potentially director role who wants to get to that senior role so they can start being in conversations that way and being coached to get there? Would that be something too for the mastermind as well?
Yeah, 100%. Because
Okay.
part of the mastermind too is also like, there's a recorded and live video trainings around things like,
Wow.
how do you exert influence when you don't have direct reports perhaps yet, or how do you communicate?
Wow.
How do you give feedback? How do you manage your time best? How do you delegate,
Yeah.
even if you don't have a whole team to delegate to? So it kind of combines the hard skills with the soft skills of leadership. One of the other questions
Wow.
I get a lot is, Vicki, like, do I need an MBA? And I say this as a person that has an MBA, but I got my MBA in my early 20s, my early mid 20s. Like, most people, 9.5 times out of 10, don't need one. They're just getting
Yeah.
one out of like, sort of the safety and the security, and also like maybe they're missing out on something, and like the FOMO of it.
Yes.
But like the
That was
skills
the
that
route
you,
I went down. Yeah, I
yeah,
didn't end up getting it, but it was it was FOMO.
it's FOMO. Yeah,
It was letters after my name, and now I'm married to someone with a ton of letters
a
after
lot
his
of
name. I'm
letters.
like,
Yeah.
ah, but I don't need it,
You don't
right?
need it. And a lot of people don't need it.
Yeah,
But like, there's a lot of things that like you learn in your program that are incredibly important. And like, we can teach you those things too. And like some of the
right.
tactical things you can absolutely learn, that are going to be super, super helpful and allow you to like really grow your career with intention, with purpose,
Yeah,
in the way that you want it to be.
I love that. Okay, so when people are listening to this, it's May. When this comes out, they may listen to a replay. We're gonna have a link for them to just get in contact with you. What's the best way is to reach out on Instagram, or we'll have a link to like learn more, book a call, waitlist situation, or what's the best way for
Yes.
people if
Yeah.
they're like, wait, this could be good?
So please send me a message on Instagram or LinkedIn, or I will have a link for all of the information about
Okay.
the mastermind and how you can learn more and connect with me and see if it's maybe a good fit for you.
I'm so intrigued. I feel like and then is it like rolling admission or is
It's
it
going to be
start?
rolling. Yes, it's going to
I
be
love
rolling.
that.
Yeah.
That's genius. Anyone
Thank
listening,
you.
rolling admission is where it's at. It's
I'm excited.
sometimes yeah, it's just great. If someone wants to get in, they need to be able to get in and get
They need to be
going,
able to get
you
in.
know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
well, please send me information. I'm glad it's rolling because we're in a season of it's there's a lot going on in our lives right now, and I'm like, wait, let's see what the fall or next year looks like, because I love being around good people. I believe in your coaching so much, so I'm even like, I want to learn more. I'll tell you what, if you're listening to this, and mark on your calendars, because I hope Vicki does her goals workshop again in December or January, because it's freaking amazing. I've done it now, twice with you.
Yeah.
I need to revisit my goals, so maybe that's something. Oh yeah, we had talked about this, maybe once a quarter.
Once a quarter. Yeah, that's like, I want to do it once a quarter, because it really is, it's like one of my favorite things to do, is like to do that goal setting workshop.
It's so good, and Brad and I need to review our goals. I'm gonna pull that doc up this week. But no, anyone listening, definitely just follow Vicki and get connected with her. But this mastermind sounds amazing. So before we head to the fun part of the giggles part of clicks and giggles, what is one way that you see women leaving money on the table? I know we were chatting about this before, and you're like, there's a lot of ways. So what's one way you see them?
Okay, so one way I think is by being complacent, right? Is by settling for this belief that I can never be promoted, I can never grow, and I am insert blank, like in this stage of my life, and I should just stay here, you know, and that like it is what it is mentality, that complacency mentality is the number one way that I see business leaders and corporate leaders leave money on the table, whether it is through their salary or whether it is through building their business. This it is what it is complacent mentality is, I think, the number one way we are leaving money on the table, women especially.
It's scary to think about.
It's so scary.
We'll definitely, depending on how we're recording this in advance, but tonight goes, please, if you do some sort of replay or people can opt in or buy the replay, I think that is, I'm sure there's people listening who are like, wait, am I living a complacent life? And that is such a good place to start, if maybe they're not mastermind ready or coaching ready, of just like, what are some quick wins I can have, right? 100%. Through realizing, wait, it doesn't have to be this way, It
doesn't have to be this way. And I actually have a pinned post on my Instagram page right now that actually like helps you. I think it's like the 10 signs that you might be living a complacent life. Like if that might be the place for you to like go and check it out.
To start.
Am I? Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna get that for the show notes too. Okay, so now that we've talked business and personal development and coaching and all that good stuff, what are some things you like to do for fun? I know you have little ones and are thick in the parenting years, but how do you maybe on like a daily basis get to show up for yourself? And then like, what are bigger, more fun things you like to do too?
So like my non-negotiable is coffee by myself in the morning before my whole family wakes up. Like it is my greatest life's joy, and like I will wake up earlier. Just to get it. And my children wake up early, and I will wake up earlier than them just so that I could have like it makes me happy. It makes me a better human being. Like overall, it's just it's a big part of it's. I look forward to it every day.
That's so good. I love that.
It's great. But I also I'm actually like I'm wearing my sneakers right now. I walk all the time. It's just like, I don't know, I love being outside, and like, we both live in Atlanta. It's like a beautiful time of year right now. Like I love seeing all of the nature and just, being outside, listening to music, listening to a podcast or like a good audiobook. It just gives me so much joy. Like talking to my best friend on the phone, like gives me just so much joy. It really is, I don't know, like it sounds so cheesy and cliche or whatever, but like it really is just like these small little things, like being able to get outside and being able to have a conversation with my best friend on the phone or listening to my favorite song is just, like they make me very, very happy.
It's a little joys, right?
It's little joys.
I love that. Yes. Which I love that. And then do you have anything fun planned in the next couple months? Like are y'all doing anything this summer or staying local and exploring Atlanta more? Or what does that look like for y'all?
A little bit of both. I'm going on vacation with my family. We're actually going to the Bahamas for the first time. I'm very excited with like an extended family. That's going to be super, super fun. And then we're doing lots of like, little local Atlanta things. My daughter is going to sleepaway camp for the first time this year. So that's like, it's growth for all of us.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That's like sweet.
It's so sweet. I'm so excited for her. It's going to be such an incredible experience for her. And, and for me also.
Yes.
I learned, you're not in that stage yet, but like I learned very quickly that like motherhood almost right away is a lesson in letting go. And I'm like, this is just one
Ooh.
more lesson in letting go. Like one more lesson
Yes.
in letting go.
I love that. That's sweet though. That'll be fun
Yeah.
for her
I'm
too.
excited for
Oh
her.
my,
She's gonna have so much fun. It'll be a good summer. I'm excited.
I love that. Well, and
Yeah.
amidst it, you will be publicly launching your mastermind, which is so
Yes,
fun.
we'll
And
be
and I
masterminding.
and I cannot wait to have you back on in the future and hear how that's going and just continue to dive deeper into the benefits of coaching and why people should have an executive coach and why some of you listening should have Vicki as your coach. I fully vouch for you, Vicki. I love getting to know you more, and I've been coached by you in rooms, even when it hasn't been directly, and even on this call, I'm thinking, and I've been coached by you, of course, through goals. So
Yeah.
no, this has been so good. We'll have to get you on the books maybe in the fall to get an update and just chat more. But if anyone has heard Vicki's conversation with me and is interested in learning more, head to the show notes and you can get all the links and all the things. Vicki, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you. It was such a pleasure.
Yes.
And Jordan, like I've said this once and I've said this 1,000 times, but you are like the biggest supporter of women, the biggest supporter of people. And just like, I don't know, you just have the biggest heart. And I am so glad that you're doing this. And just, it's such a pleasure, like seeing you shine and seeing you grow. And thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, it's the best. I love connecting good people with good people, having them here on the podcast and just in my life. So I am the lucky one. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you.